Hey everybody, welcome to the Current Events Log. So today we're going to be answering a question that I know has been rattling around the minds of a number of different internet denizens, especially in light of all the congressional inquiries and investigations dealing with President Trump, his administration, and any potential ties the two may have with Russia. And that question simply is, why do Republicans seem to be so favorable towards Russia, especially considering that historically, conservatives, who make up the bulk of the Republican Party, have been rather leery towards that country in the past? What has changed? Why are Republicans so favorable towards Russia? There have been a number of different news stories and events that have established a supposed connection between the Republican Party and Russia over the past few months. I mean, obviously you have the fact that Russia meddled in the 2016 election and the ongoing controversy as to whether or not any members of President Trump's transition team were compromised by or otherwise colluded with Russia before the election or at any point since. But those are elite level questions. We also have some evidence that the increase in favorability is also impacting Republicans on the ground floor, that is, everyday party members. Recent work by Gallup shows that Republicans' favorability towards Russia has been on the rise since President Trump has taken office. The Washington Post has implicated the party writ large as being the accomplices of Russia, of being overly favorable towards the Kremlin. And Alex Jones, a very controversial figure in contemporary American conservatism, well, I mean, more accurately, he's kind of like the far right of the alt-right, recently led a protest in Virginia in which one of the things that they chanted was explicitly, "Russia is our friend." I mean, to be fair, a chant that literal and candid kind of makes it easy for people to imagine a connection between Russia and the Republican Party. I mean, you're not giving people a lot of wiggle room with that. The obvious question here is, why the sudden about-face? Because for decades, conservatives and Republicans have been especially weary towards Russia, especially compared to Democrats. What is causing this new emerging phenomenon? Why do Republicans seem to like Russia so much lately? The short answer is, they actually don't. Most Republicans don't actually feel that favorable towards Putin or Russia in general. In fact, if you look at the data inside that Gallup report I referenced earlier, you'll find that the rise in Republican positive sentiments towards Russians have increased from 2015 to today. And that rise has been from 13% to a whopping 22%, meaning that about 4/5 of Republicans do not feel positively towards Russia, and the vast majority of them actually feel rather strongly against Russia. The story has been in the increase since 2015, but a lot of individuals have taken that story to mean that there's been an increase in the absolute number of Republicans that feel favorable towards Russia. That is, they hear that more Republicans are feeling favorable towards Russia now, so therefore they think that Republicans in general feel favorable towards Russia, but the data simply does not back that up. By and large, they do not feel positively towards Russia. Another source of confusion can come from the kind of questions that these pollsters ask. For instance, Pew Research came out with a recent report that indicated that Republicans feel less threatened by Russia recently, that the number of individuals that stated that Russia is a grave threat to the United States has gone down. But in order for us to understand that, we also have to understand the different kinds of media that Republicans and conservatives are taking in, and the different countries that they are emphasizing. And they're emphasizing countries like North Korea and Iran. And indeed, those countries have gone up in seriousness, while Democratic sources of media, such as MSNBC and CNN, have largely been talking about Russia, so it makes sense for them to see Russia as a greater and greater threat. It's not so much that Republicans don't see Russia as a threat. They do see Russia as a threat. It's just when asked and prompted for the number one threat, they give an answer that's more concomitant with the kinds of things that they're seeing in the news. I want to emphasize that it's not that Republicans don't feel disfavorable towards Russia or that they don't feel that Russia is not a threat. It's just that by and large, for a variety of different reasons, Democrats feel more strongly about those things right now. An analogy would be you have two people who both vehemently dislike strawberry ice cream. It's just that one of them can't absolutely touch the stuff and the other could stomach it down if it was forced. It doesn't mean that that one person likes strawberry ice cream, it just means that they dislike it less. Similarly, it's not that Republicans like Russia, it's that they dislike them less than Democrats do right now. Now, that's not to downplay the fact that we have indeed seen this increase in favorability amongst the minority of the Republican Party. Despite the fact that they don't constitute the numerical majority, it is still an interesting question why these 22% of Republicans have felt more favorable towards Russia than they have in years past. And there are a load of different reasons behind this, right? Part of it has to do with the friendly intent that President Trump has had, certainly more friendly intent than past presidents have had towards Russia. There's also the influence that Russian PR as well as Russian media establishments are having in the United States' media environment lately, and these are very important factors. But today what I want to focus on is the influence and impact of a construct known as right-wing authoritarianism. You might have seen the terms right-wing authoritarianism, or just authoritarianism for short, bandied about a lot on the internet lately. And this can be a bit problematic when it's used in normal discourse, because obviously these terms are constituted with a whole bunch of words that come pre-packaged with a lot of negative connotations. So I'm not trying to, invoke said connotations here. What I'm referring to is a attitudinal construct that is used in political psychology to measure how people interact with conservatism and with authority in general. What does the term actually mean? Well, in this video I'm going to be using the definition proposed by Eckhammer et al. In their paper, What Matters Most to Prejudice? Big Five Personality, Social Dominance Orientation, or Right-Wing Authoritarianism. And they say, quote, right-wing authoritarianism is a construct that consists of conventionalism, authoritarian submission, and authoritarian aggression, which means that high RWA people tend to favor traditional values, are submissive to authority figures, are highly ethnocentric, and can be expected to act aggressively towards outgroups. So effectively, authoritarianism acts as a spectrum. One can be low on it, and one can be high on it. And when you're on the higher end of that spectrum, you tend to feel more deference to authority, you tend to feel more retaliatory towards outgroups, and you tend to feel more favorable towards very traditionalistic ideas of conservatism. It's easy to see why these people might feel more favorable towards Russia, because as a country it has been moving in a more traditionalistic direction over the last few years. And by extension, it makes sense why these individuals might feel more favorable towards President Vladimir Putin, because by many accounts he is a very strong and capable leader. He is also, to be explicit, an anti-democratic despot, and his capabilities come from ruling that country with an iron fist. So he can get things done, but not necessarily in a very democratic way. But for some individuals, the simple fact that he can get things done, that he projects a certain amount of masculine strength, is very favorable to them. They find that to be attractive. This is partially why the leaders of autocratic countries can enjoy such high public opinion ratings. Well, I mean, that and the fact that if anybody voices any dissenting words, they may lose the ability to have words ever again. But besides that, there is the inexorable fact that we all do exist on this authoritarian spectrum. And the fact of the matter is that those who are more on the positive end of that spectrum are simply going to be more attracted to leaders who can appear to be able to get things done. And this appeal can be even stronger in those places and amongst those people who feel like their country has gotten away from them. In short, we may be seeing an increase in Russian favorability amongst those minority of Republicans because many of the actions that President Trump takes tap into the same idea. And the reason this is so localized in the Republican Party is because right-wing authoritarianism is correlated with being a conservative, which itself is correlated with voting Republican or identifying with the Republican Party. But it's important to note that there's no one-to-one ratio here. Being a Republican does not necessarily mean that one is authoritarian. Most authoritarians identify as Republicans, or at least vote in tandem with the Republican Party, but most Republicans do not identify as being authoritarian. And this is possible because the number of individuals who are authoritarian or who are further along the right on that spectrum are much smaller than the number of individuals who identify as Republicans. So why do Republicans seem to like Russia so much lately? Again, by and large, the vast majority of them actually do not. And for those that have experienced an increase, that increase is probably very closely linked to a attitudinal construct known as right-wing authoritarianism. What do you guys think? How do you feel about this idea of the Republican Party feeling more favorable towards Russia than they have in years past? Or maybe how do you feel about the whole way this idea has promulgated and spread throughout the internet and across other media platforms? Let me know down in the comment sections below, or maybe if you have an idea for another topic you'd like for me to tackle in the future. Look forward to reading all of them, answering a few of them in the next office hours. Links for everything as always will be down in the doobly-doo, as well as the links to the Facebook, the Twitter, and the blog. I look forward to seeing all of you guys out there as well. If you enjoyed this video, I hope you'll consider liking it, subscribing to the channel, and maybe clicking the bell to stay notified when new content is uploaded. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next time.